I hereby call on February 24th, 2025, a meeting of the Town of Hanson Planning Board to order at 6:30 PM. I'd also like to announce for those in attendance that this meeting is being recorded for distribution on the Whitman Hanson Community Access. Playback times and other related information on this recording can be found at whca.tv. For the record this evening, we have a full planner's office with the town planner present, as well as our town planner administrative assistant. The board has two members that are not in attendance this evening. That's Mr. Benenato and Mr. Cohen. We will see them hopefully again very quickly back to the planning board's agendas in the next coming weeks. First item of business on our agenda is the approval of the February 10th, 2025 open session public meeting minutes. We have a few different choices. We can table the minutes to the next meeting so that the other members can add some input. We do have a quorum. We can call those tonight if Mr. Kemet.
I'll make a motion that we table those until our next meeting.
Yeah, I think that you weren't here, right?
Yeah, so it's probably better that.
That way we can get a full copy. So there's a motion on the floor to table the minutes to our next meeting. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Ellis. Any discussion on tabling the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 302, Tony. And it is my understanding that our first appointment this evening at 6:35, that the town planner has an update in regards to that appointment. And we'll get to that in just a few minutes, so that way we're not in violation of any open meeting laws. However, I'll take a motion to take the agenda out of order, so while we're going through the motions in tonight's agenda and the motions of tonight's agenda, that we can take some things out of order and maybe rein them in the light of the fact that we have some folks here for some presentations and just out of good order for the clock. Is the board okay with that? Mr. Ellis made the motion. John, is there a second?
Yeah.
There's a second. Motion's been made and seconded to take the agenda out of order. Any discussion?
No.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 302. Tony, we're going to be able to take the meeting out of order, or the agenda out of order, for more clerical things. So we have a few minutes before our 6:35. I understand that there's some invoices.
Yes, we actually do have an invoice. And this is for the $265 for one of the members of the board to attend the MMA conference, which took place in January.
Nice. Any questions in regards to signing of this invoice? $224. Keep writing 12. Thank you. I'd also like to recognize that we have Mr. Ed Heel this evening in our audience. He is our appointed liaison from the select board. So we have some representation from our select board here this evening. Always thank you for coming. Yeah. Yeah.
Keep it.
Let me give this over to Tony. $6:35, Tony. Going to move on our agenda to our first appointment this evening. I understand you have an update for our filed A&R.
Yes, we did have an A&R plan filed on February 20th. It involves 3 properties, 480, 512, and 524 Pleasant Street. The applicant's engineer sent me an email, and it came in February 24th from Mr. Gary Rice at Land Planning. It says, "Hi Tony, a situation has come up that I must attend to this evening once I get off work, so I will not be able to attend tonight's meeting. Could you please reschedule me for the next available planning board meeting? Thank you." So that would be tentatively the March 10th, 2025. The 21-day time to act would end on March 12th. So the planning board would still have sufficient time to address the A&R on March 10th if it chooses to do so.
So we had just offer the idea that, you know, if we would open that hearing and then continue it, then that would take care of the timing.
Well, thing is, it's not a public hearing,
Okay.
so it's just an, you know, it's being an A&R, it's just you had 21 days to act. So it's
Okay.
not, you know, he's just asking to push it off to the next meeting. But you can decide to do so or not to do so. Now, obviously with 3 members, if you all 3 of you have to vote in the affirmative, or it gets denied.
Chair would entertain a motion to accept the request for continuance of the A&R until March 10th.
So move.
Motion's been made by Mr. Kemet, seconded by Mr. Ellis. Any discussion in regards to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
When's the next date?
March 10th, March 10th. That motion carries, Tony, 302 to bring that tentatively to the March 10th date. Seeing how we do have the agenda out of order. The last part of our business for the day is to establish March 10th as our next planning board date. What's the will of the board? Motion to have a meeting on March 10th?
Be it.
Motion's been made by Mr. Ellis. Is there a second, Mr. Kemmett? Second by Mr. Kemmett. Any discussion in regards to having our next meeting on March 10th? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? 302, Tony. So that's definitive. That's 310. So you can let the folks know for that applicant that that's going to be solid for them.
That's on the bottom anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Can knock these things out. Look, we're going to get all set and ready, and then we have to sit and wait until the public hearing time.
Yeah, I know.
That's okay.
I looked at the times and I'm like, okay, I think I'm gonna have to tighten these up a little more next time.
You want to give an update for the MBTA action plan?
Sure, absolutely. So, as the board is aware, we had to file an action plan by February the 13th. So that was done. I submitted that on the 12th of February, along with the letter from the town administrator's office. We did receive a response from the HLC stating that we are currently in interim compliance and obviously have till the 14th of July to be in full compliance. That being said, one of the benefits is it allows us now access to the 2 grants that we received through the One Stop program at the end of 2024. To that effect, I had a Zoom call today with a member of Mass Development to go over the grant that we received for 212 Industrial Boulevard, which is the town-owned parcel within the industrial park. So what that grant is going to allow us to do is to take a look at that site and determine where the resource areas are and what impacts they have on the site and see what can that site yield. Similar to what we're doing on 0 West Washington Street. So they'll look at that and figure out what size building could go on there and also look at getting the resource area established, located, and approved. All depends on budget, but that's where it's going with tasks. So what they're going to do now is they're going to reach out to a few companies to get some proposals and see who can do it for that price and who's available to do it. Matter of fact, one of the companies may be one of the companies that's here tonight. So that's where we're at with that one. The second one has to do with Hawks Ave. I have not heard back from the state on that one. They may have reached out to town administrator's office. I haven't heard anything as of yet. So at least the Industrial Boulevard one is moving forward. What I also was told today is that, well, the understanding is, once the contract's executed, if for some reason, let's say July 14th rolls around, the town is not compliant, that won't get pulled back because the contract has been executed. So that's a good thing. So whatever the results are, at least we can still have that money and that project can continue to move forward, and we can figure out what we can do with that property. So that's where we're at with the MBTA action plan. Now there has been a little bit of a development that took place over the weekend. The town of Rentham, who I believe did not accept the MBTA, had reached out to the state auditor's office to review the whole MBTA zoning act, section 3A, and requested that they determine whether or not this was considered an unfunded mandate. So after they reviewed, they did release a letter on the 21st of February. It was CC'd to the Lieutenant Governor, the Attorney General. They did say and state that they, based on the law, and this is still and this includes the Milton case as part of their review, that this is an unfunded mandate. And what would happen is it could, as they put in the conclusion, they've determined it's an unfunded mandate. Obviously, things can change based on legislature and court action. But that the process is, if it's determined as an unfunded mandate, a municipality would have to file with the SJC for an exemption. Now, obviously, if Hanson chooses or Rentham chooses or whatever communities choose to do that, they have to go to the SJC. And I'm sure that, we'd have to come up with some good reasoning before the SJC to get some type of exemption. So I think that opens the door to a possibility for, what choice that Hanson might choose to pursue, if that's the way they want to go. And I think it also opens it up to other things, such as maybe Hanson wishes to look at the CCC regulations and request that the state auditor take a look at that, because as we talked about the CCC, the equity policy, there was a significant cost that would basically more than it's sort of administrative. Might be worth a review there, because a town like Hanson may not be able to incur the cost where something like a larger municipality or a city could actually deal with.
Would that have to be the TA's office that sends out that letter, or the select?
Yes. So that, because the town administrator for Rentham is the one who sent the request off to, on behalf of the select board,
Right.
for that review. So that's, a little wrinkle in the paper, if you will. It should be interesting now, because that this being listed as a unfunded state mandate.
Yeah.
We'll have to see what happens now. I guess you could say the ball's back in the court of the legislature to see what they'll do. We'll probably have information come out this week, I would think. Once everybody digests it. It just came out on the 21st, so everybody's gonna have to digest it and figure out what's the next step.
When that comes about, it'll be pretty close to an election time, too.
Well, I think you have the deadline looming, so you have to deal with that. It's getting more and more interesting by the day.
Yes.
So that's what I have. That's what I have for that at this time.
Question.
Yeah, Alice.
Do you think we could do a cover for somebody coming through the town as a toll to get some monies to support some of the stuff that they want? Meaning the train coming through the town, and yet they want everything done for that, because of that.
If you write it up, I'll turn it in.
Double the parking fee.
And,
Well, there's always, I mean, there's some communities like large cities that have done congestion fees, you know?
Yeah.
If you're bringing your car in between this time and this time, you have to pay a congestion fee. You could always try that, Don,
Yeah.
you know? You know, because I mean, it does get a little congested around that time, right? During rush hour,
That's right.
between like what, 4 and 6? Yeah. So,
And of course, the fuel that they use is diesel, and that's polluting our town.
and Hanson being within 2 watersheds
Yeah.
with a lot of, you know, open space.
Yeah.
You write it up.
Next item we have on our agenda under board business is a 645 zoning application review. I'm going to hand the panel over to the town planner to talk about and discuss. I'm going to abstain from any conversation in regards to this. I have a conflict because I am actually a patient at this location.
Okay.
Why is that a conflict?
Just find it easier for me to step back. It's nothing for us, it's a ZBA.
It's on County Road.
It's a ZBA.
Well, if you don't mind, Tony, I have a couple of questions. Maybe you could answer those while you do your little diatribe.
Sure.
Yeah. I noticed like around the perimeter, and I could be wrong, but it looks like the buffer zone's pretty much gone with that parking lot, and I don't know the distance between the edge of the right-hand side and the building itself.
I think it might show better on this page here.
They have a problem that they didn't use on that plan, they didn't use anything on the heading to where it's located. I tried to figure it out on the High Street, but there's no numbers or anything bordering on High Street.
It's right next to the county road.
It's County Road.
No, it doesn't show anything, it just shows going across through the High Street. And I'd be damned if I could find it, because that, on the county road, it's just right at the end of what do you call it, the town,
Zoning line?
no,
Yeah. Well, its address is County Road. It is the existing dental office.
so this must be where the insurance company is,
The dentist.
but then it's next to that,
Yes.
right?
So they're submitted an application to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit and for site plan review and approval. So what they're doing is the business was given a special permit to convert from a single family to a business back in, I believe, the 1980s. They have it here on the plan.
And that's for that specific purpose, right?
Correct.
In that specific building. Now that you're
Correct.
adding another whole building and taking the old one down, all that stuff goes away. Is that true?
Well, I think the whole idea is that the existing building stays up until the new building is done. And once it's ready to move in, they'll move in and then they'll knock the old building down. So in '88, it was allowed to go from a single family to a business through the Zoning Board of Appeals because that site happens to fall within the Residence A district. The dentist, the doctor who ran it for many, many years, I guess, retired and a couple years ago sold to the current applicants. And so to provide more service to the community and better access to the building, they're going before the zoning board and asking to be able to put up a new building space with parking and tear down the old building once the new building is up. So they've proposed parking spaces. They've designed a drainage system, an infiltration system that'll be underground. They'll be tying into the existing septic system, which I would have to just believe that they must have spoke. Yeah, that it's brand new, and so they must have talked with the Board of Health, and it has the capacity for the proposed use. So they did come in and speak with myself, the former building inspector, and the zoning administrator when they were proposing this, because they had concerns and questions. One of the things we brought up to them was, the fact that there is a residence on the other side, provide sufficient buffer. This plan does show a tree line along here, but I've made some comments on the plans that I'm going to be submitting to the zoning board, and one of the comments is that, that area be enhanced to provide better screening, either through fencing, such as a fence, or a fence and some shrubbery. They have, like I said, an infiltration system, so they have 2 catch basins. It's going to go into a grit chamber and then into the the infiltration system for the drainage. I have some questions that I'm going to request that the zoning board's review engineer take a look at. As I look at this, there's a couple of things that I noticed regarding the drainage. I think they're using it as a redevelopment, so their drainage system really will handle the 25-year event, but if it gets to the 100-year event, it's an issue. The other thing, my concern is that when you use a grit chamber, you're supposed to design it so that the low flow events, like the 2-year storm, goes into the grit chamber and then out to your infiltration system, but the higher velocity storms will bypass and go directly in. So I haven't seen the drainage calculations, so I don't know what their thought was.
Do you know the drainage is being handled coming off the building itself? I don't see it.
There-
That was my other question.
Yeah, they're proposing that the roof drains will tie into this infiltration system. So, what just happened here? So this RD stands for roof drain, and so it'll tie in. It'll tie in.
And do we have elevations of what this looks like? And the reason I ask that is because it is a residential zone,
Mhm.
right? So if that's a commercial looking building, I wonder if there's something they can do architecturally to make that look more like a residential, like what's already there.
We mentioned that to them when we met with them,
Mhm.
that, if they have submitted architecturals, I haven't seen it. It wasn't part of what was given to us.
Yep.
We were just given a full set of site plans. But that when we did speak with them, we asked them, to consider the building and the surrounding area to try and create a building that sort of fits in with architecturally with the area.
And
And
significantly larger than the existing building.
yes,
You know, if it's a
Yeah.
commercial looking building, it's gonna kind of be, I
yeah.
don't know, disappointing maybe.
One of the things that we recommended to them is if they get this through at a later date, that they should probably consider getting that lot rezoned and brought into the business zone. Just for the reason that if they decided to move on, the only type of business that could go in there is a dentist's office. So you couldn't reuse the building for anything other than a dentist's office.
Mhm.
So now at least if it's in the business zone and someone came in to repurpose the building for some other type of use, then it would just be as of right.
I think it's great they're willing to invest in the community and put in a nice building compared to what's there. I mean, the one that's there is kind of tough.
Yeah, it allows for better access as far as handicap accessibility. And again, they wanted to bring in more, basically they're going to have more staff to provide better service for the community. So, like I said, I have some comments that I'm going to be submitting to the zoning board of appeals. A few of them to their review engineer to see if take a look at this, because there's a couple of things that I see here that I think they can address or they need to address.
Is there like a management plan for the pervious cement? Concrete or whatever?
Well, I would think that should be part of their stormwater calculations,
Right.
that they would have something in there. That's one of the things I noticed that says, pervious pavement.
Mhm.
And when I look at the site plan, I'm like, okay, this looks like the line right here is where there's the transition, but, you know, they need to call it out. What's the transition? I think it's right there, based on square footage. The other thing is I didn't see a detail for the pervious pavement, you know, and they exclude it from their gross lot coverage, and I'm like, nah, I don't think so. You know, it's still it's not open, it's not green space, it's still pavement. It just means that the water filters through it, but it's still pavement. So I think there's some things they need to address. But overall, I think it's a good idea. You know, I think it's an improvement for what they're trying to do.
So
Yeah.
the last and final question is, and I don't know all my numbers, and I could be totally wrong on this, but aren't they supposed to have, like a percentage of land as opposed to what they're doing? And like, there's supposed to be percentages on that, is that true?
They do have on the first sheet,
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I looked at this on my phone, so I didn't get a good look at it.
so on the first sheet, they talk about, you know, so the max lot coverage existing is 1,186,
Mhm.
and they're gonna bump it up to 5,370. The total gross coverage is, which 30% is required of Residence A, existing is 19% at 9,250, and proposed is 14, just over 14,000, and they call it 29.4%, but you see that there's a footnote too, and it says excludes the 6264 square foot of pervious pavement, and I disagree with that statement.
Yeah, it does go over the.
Yeah, it goes over, it brings over to 30%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's something they need to address, because it brings them up to about 42.2%.
That's coming up to almost half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, but I think they can address these things, and they can make it work. Ultimately, it's up to the zoning board, but, you know, there's a couple of things. In all honesty, for the company that did the work here, I've seen their work before. Some of the things that I'm seeing are just kind of, maybe it's just they're real busy, but it's just a little surprised at some of the things that aren't shown on the plan. That
Mr. Ellis has a comment.
I agree with you. I think that that's the best suitable use for that location. It's not an area where you want a residential house there anymore, because there's so much traffic coming down both roads on both sides. Across the street from them, it's pretty much the same. You got the old real estate business there, which is the barber shop, and that whole corner, that intersection there. I think it's probably the better suitable use.
yeah, they're very excited. Nice,
And plus we get some tax money.
yeah, nice people. Seem very interested. I mean, they came to us first before they even proposed anything, to get our input, to get ideas, to know what to do. So they had to sit down with all the land planning departments. They're very interested in investing in Hanson. I believe they're even looking at trying to buy a home in Hanson. So, you know, they're interested in being here, which is a good thing.
Yeah, the one right behind them's for sale.
Is it? So there you go. So overall, you know, I think it's a pretty good design. They just, you know, some things they need to address, but I think overall it's a good design.
But you think that it should be changed to a business zone?
I think so. I think, you know, and we mentioned that to them, that, you know, at a later date, they should probably do some type of like citizens petition to get that lot put into the business zone. It just makes more sense, you know, especially now what they're gonna go with this building. If anything happens, then that building can only be a dentist's office. It's kind of like the VCA down on Main Street. The only thing it could be is a VCA.
Yeah.
And we lose out, you know. Now, if it's in the business zone, well, someone could come in and do something else, cut it up into a couple office spaces, and, you know, and have 3 businesses in there.
I like it better with the change of use, because if you think about it, if you allow this type of construction in a residential zone, you're kind of setting a precedence where, you know, somebody's a nice guy and they're doing the right thing and they're gonna build whatever they want, but it's not in the flavor of the residential. I don't think that's a good idea.
Right, right.
Just
Yeah.
throw that out there.
So, I don't know.
Moving on the agenda, we have continued board of business, updates.
Mr. Chair, if I may, so, is the board okay with, I will forward comments based on my review to the zoning board of appeals? Does that work?
Yeah, With two members being away, I'm going to take this in reverse order. Mr. Kimball, do you have any updates on Community Preservation Committee?
I do not, but I would like to say that I will be running again for the planning board, so we're gonna need somebody from this board to step up with community preservation.
Mr. Ellis, High Street Park. I see we have a public hearing on that tonight.
I guess we don't. Oh, the one at 7:05?
Yes, sir.
I can provide some information.
No, it's continued to March 24th. Right, you haven't got anything to,
Yeah, so I, if I may, Mr. Chair. So I met with a representative from land planning, and so they have the proposal. The proposal was signed by the TA's office. It was sent over to land planning. There was a question regarding some payment, and I said, well, you know, the whole idea is that, you know, once the work is done, then the payment will take place. That, you know, the reality of it is the money is in the account. It's there if that makes them feel better. But the whole idea is that, you know, once you do the work, you'll get paid. The money's there. So they have the proposal, the signed proposal. They have everything they need to sort of get going on it. I'll be reaching out to, again, I haven't heard back from the representative, but I'll be reaching out to them again this week just to be sure that they're moving forward with it. So that's where we're at with that.
We have representatives from my appointments. We have representatives here from VHB. They're going to give a presentation at a public hearing here in a few moments. And apparently I found out that I need to go swear in. So Ms. Kelly from the town clerk's office told me I need to come up and swear in. So we do that tomorrow. Look at that, we're so efficient, we've taken everything.
I can give you a couple other updates that they're not on the agenda, but they're just updates.
Town planner.
So the housing production plan, we were gonna go before the select board, but the select board has chosen to just issue any edits or comments in writing. So that's what we'll do with the select board. They'll forward any comments and questions or edits to me, and I'll forward it to the consultant. She was okay with that.
Great.
So I've also forwarded the housing production plan to the Hanson Housing Authority for their review and any comment as well. And I've also offered to go to a meeting that they're going to have on March 10th, not March 10th, the week of March 10th, to discuss it with them. I've offered that, you know, if they want the consultant there, and because I'm also going to speak to them on another property, the one on Phillip Street, just to give them an update. So that's what's going on with the housing production plan.
You making headway with conservation about the super board meeting?
I had an email today from their administrative assistant, so we're trying to work that out, and maybe that might take place in March. So we're making progress on Pratt Place. I think we're a little behind. I've made it clear to the consultant that that's a priority because obviously we're heading towards spring, and we'd like to get this project completed this summer. I just learned something today about the fire department I wasn't aware of, so we'll sort of have to work that in.
Is it affected by MBTA communities as well? Is that great?
No, it's not.
Okay.
So that's the good thing.
Yeah.
That's under ARPA, so we're good there. So making progress on that one, making progress still on the pedestrian improvements.
Mm-hmm.
I did have contact with one of the abutters who had some questions.
Or Main Street?
Yeah, and so basically a family member of theirs reached out to me who was a planner and had some questions. So I spoke with them, gave them information, and so I think we'll be able to address their concerns.
how about Route 14?
Yeah, I was gonna ask
So McQuan Street, we had the earmark for $100,000. That's, all the paperwork has been turned in. And now we're working with environmental partners, just trying to basically schedule, they don't do the borings, they hire someone else to do the borings, so we're on the list. It's been a slow moving process, but that's the next step, is everything's in place to now get the borings going, and then we can see what happens after that. Now, I was told that by the highway superintendent that Eversource, I believe, wants to come in and replace part of or the entire gas main along that stretch of road.
No.
Which then, if that's the case, part of that road's going to get repaved. So this could get interesting. We may have.
You should pay for it.
Yeah, they would, but the key thing becomes, where are they replacing the line, and will it coincide with what's Mass DOT is expecting to do to the road? So, for instance, at that intersection, at that crest where they're going to lower the road by 4 feet, hopefully the gas company will be, we'll have to make them aware of what's going on with that tip. So it's not a case of they go put in a brand new line and find out a year later, oh, we actually have to lower it another 2 or 3 feet. I don't think MassDOT would be happy with that either. So
Is that like in proximity to where the water main runs? There's, like
the gas line,
Yeah.
I'd have to look at the plan. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I'd have to look at the plan to see how close they are.
Yeah,
Time having arrived at 7:05, I'm going to open the public hearing for the High Street Park working title submitted by High Street Park Committee for land located on High Street, map 49, lot 1, 1A-1. Public hearing is being requested to be continued to March 24, 2025. The town has retained the services of the design engineer who is in process of revising the site plans. Before we go and continue that though, as this is a public hearing, are there any comments or questions or concerns from the board?
No.
High Street Park.
So moved.
No questions from the board? Are there any questions from any audience members in attendance this evening? And with that,
I got one.
Mr. Ellis?
Is there any chance that some of that money that you got for doing the park, for the engineering, if we can replace that sewer line that runs underneath the road down to the tank from the building to to a staged area, and it goes under the road and dumps into the tank? We can change that because it's so old. I'd hate to see the road get finished, with the parking there, right in front of the playground area.
Yeah.
If we could change it, dig it up, and possibly put a 4-inch line or whatever size of PVC.
I would think so. I would think as you get closer to that, you could include that in the cost. Yeah.
I don't think it would be that much of an expense, but unless they run into something else.
Yeah, no, I think you could include that in the cost of the park, because that's
Right.
part of it. It's replacing that.
They hate to
it'd
get
be
all the
u-
playgrounds done and everything
Yeah, it'd be a
else, and then
utility.
all of a sudden it becomes an issue.
Yeah.
Or if you wanted to expand it and go over it, you could.
Yeah, I don't think that's an issue, but we'll just make note of it. That's something we want to do. Yeah.
Just to keep it in the background anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you.
With that, I entertain a motion to accept the request to continue the public hearing tentatively till March 24, 2025.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Kemet, seconded by Mr. Ellis. Any discussion in regards to that continuation? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 302. The public hearing will be continued to March 24th. Tentatively, so that weather and all that included.
Which one was that?
Yeah, 7:05 public hearing. And then the last thing that we have on our agenda, coming up, we have a public hearing at 7:15, so in a few moments, for an update on the Hanson Open Space and Recreation Plan. So if you need to review any of your information in your packet, the town planner's office has provided some information.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely, town planner.
Two things. One, in your packet regarding the open space and recreation plan, and they'll be discussed tonight as well, there's an online survey. We also have paper copies that we can supply. The second thing I want to speak to the board about is this Thursday, February 27th at Camp Kawani, the Economic Development Committee is having their business summit from 5:30 to 8 p.m. I posted it in the event that members of the board would like to attend. The chair of the EDC has asked different land use boards, and so if someone is available that would be interested in, attending, we're gonna have some food, and some guests, and Representative Swayze will be there. We have the building commissioner, the assessor, the town clerk, fire department.
Assessor?
Yeah, I don't think fire responded though. But we're gonna have the assessor, the town clerk, to answer any business questions, the town administrator. So we'll have a few people there. So if anyone from the board is interested in attending as either a planning board member or even a business owner. So
That's
Five.
from 5 until when, Tony?
5:30 to 8 on this Thursday.
Please come.
We're gonna have food from Meadowbrook. This Wednesday, Mr. Chair, I'm sure you're aware, the Oak Line Planning Council will be meeting. I'll be in attendance for that.
Laurie, let's see back to work.
I believe she is, yeah.
So one thing you can't rein in, public hearing notice.
Yeah, I know. I was expecting the rest of it to sort of fill in. I should have tightened the times up a little bit.
No, no big deal. Look at it, it's almost 7:15, we've gone through everything.
Yeah, I figured I'd have to do a little talking, a little filling in.
That's okay.
If we're lucky, these guys will keep it brief now. Just
Somebody's gonna drive to Boston.
Can't employ any local consultants?
What's that?
Said you guys can't employ any local consultants? We did this with a master plan, the poor girl was driving from Worcester.
Yeah, that was bad.
Well, OCPC's out of Brockton, so, yeah.
Where was the picture taken? Not in Hanson?
Nope.
Pembroke.
Scaramouche, get river. Is
Pembroke.
that the right way to say it? Do you know how to say it?
No.
Shushabascatucket River?
I think it's called the Indian River or something, I don't know. But that's what it looks like coming from like West Washington either side, you know?
Anybody watch the hockey game the other night? That's sad, disappointing.
It's weird seeing Brad Marchand on the other side.
Yeah,
What can you do?
yeah. Well, listen, I didn't have a problem getting hit because it's like, look, you're playing for the other side. My wife,
Hit him quite a bit.
my wife has family in Toronto, and so the next day I received a couple of photographs of, the one is like the Canadian goose on top of the American eagle, and
Well, that's not good.
Send him a-
yeah. So I responded with a photo of like a thermonuclear explosion, and I'm like, yeah, let the bombing begin,
You could reply back with that picture of the flag with the 51st star.
She did send the picture though. There was like it was a jersey, and it said never 51. Yeah.
51.
Yeah. We always have that banter. My wife's cousin's a Leafs fan, so anytime it hits the playoffs, it's always good. It's always some good banter.
The time having arrived is 7:15. I'm going to open up the Hanson public hearing for the update of the Hanson Open Space and Recreation Plan. A continued hearing. Representatives from VHB will present proposed revisions to the Hanson Open Space and Recreation Plan based community and board input regarding future housing needs. We have in attendance Julia Mintz. Did I say it right? Mintz?
Yes.
Mintz. Julia, and please come on up.
And we also have Krista Magaha.
Krista McGaha is here as well from VHB. Take it away.
Thank you for having us here tonight.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, so we're VHB, urban planning and engineering firm. We're based in Watertown, Massachusetts, where we primarily work out of. And we, are really excited to be working on this update for the town. And tonight we'll be just providing a progress update of where we are in the planning process. So we'll introduce ourselves a little more in depth. We'll review the process and timeline and where we're at to date. We'll give an overview of the plan and the components that it'll ultimately contain. And then most recently, we've concluded a series of stakeholder interviews on various topics. So we'll give an overview of some emerging themes that came out of those interviews and conclude with some next steps. So you can do the next slide. So I'm Julia Mintz. I'm an urban planner with VHB. I'm working as the project manager for this effort. I've been with VHB almost 4 years. I've worked on primarily a lot of master planning, but also open space and recreation planning across master plans and also public access plans, open space and recreation, community sustainability, climate resilience, and conservation are my passion. And yeah, I'm really excited to be working on this project and learning more about Hanson. I'll let Krista introduce herself.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Krista Magaha. I am also an urban planner at VHB. I've been an urban planner for about 8 years and been with VHB for about 2. My specialty focus is slightly different than Julia's, where I focus more on land use and zoning. So I am working on writing portions of the plan and working on some of the technical stuff to help out with this.
And also on our team, but not with us tonight, is Janelle McLaughlin, who's another urban planner on our team. You can go to the next slide.
Okay, so we will just talk briefly about the project timeline. We kicked the project off in December with a kickoff meeting here in Hanson that included a trip where we took a tour to some important locations. Tony toured us around and gave us some context for many of the open space and recreation locations in town. In January, we held 3 stakeholder interview sessions, and those focused on recreation and environment, public facilities and services, and town brand and character. We did just launch the online survey, and we'll touch on that a little later in this presentation, and we plan for that to be open for around a month. And towards the bottom there on the slide, you can see planned production. Those are currently in progress, where we are working on the draft of the plan, making the maps, and part of that will include a needs analysis. And so to conclude this process, we are looking forward to another public meeting in April. And that will be, the month of April will be when we turn over the draft plan to the town for review and comment. And we anticipate to wrap up that progress by the end of May. So a little bit about just the overview of the plan. It would start with the plan summary, introduction. All of these 10 categories are required by the state for every open space and rec plan. We would then get into community setting, which includes an overview of the town's demographics, land use, and climate trends, as well as the relationship between open space, recreation, and community identity, which we get into in some of the stakeholder sessions that we've talked about. It also includes the environmental inventory and analysis. That's the assessment of natural resources, habitat, as well as climate change considerations. and identification of critical ecosystems, wetlands, water resources, and also key environmental challenges and opportunities. We also have the inventory of lands of conservation and recreation interest. That's the list of protected lands, parks, trails, and recreational facilities. It includes ownership, whether it's public, private, or nonprofit, or protected in any way. And it also will identify any gaps in accessibility and connectivity for those resources. We also have the analysis of needs. This will be based off of public input on recreational and conservation priorities. It also will identify any deficiencies in facilities or accessibility or programming, as well as any future needs based off population trends as well as environmental changes. So incorporating the public input with everything else that we figured out to identify what the biggest needs in the town are. Going from there, we have the goals and objectives. And so this will be specific measurable goals for conservation and recreation, enhancing access and environmental stewardship, as well as a framework for decision-making and funding priorities. We really focus on ensuring that these will be implementable with clear steps for moving forward. That's something that no matter what type of plan that we're working on, implementation is the most important part of the plan. So we will be focusing on making sure that those steps are identified and very clear on how to move forward to implement the goals and objectives of this plan. It includes a 5-year action plan, so that would be priority projects, policies, and investments, the timeline for implementation and responsible parties, as well as funding strategies and partnership opportunities. And in section 9, we will include the summary of all of the community engagement and key feedback and how it's shaped the plan and any ongoing opportunities for public involvement. So we can move on to the next one. So we included this slide. This is the goals from the last open space and recreation plan that Hanson did. And basically, this plan will update and examine these previous goals and identify opportunities to improve and refine these. Since the previous open space and recreation plan, the Conservation Commission, Camp Kalani Committee, and the Community Preservation Committee have worked hard to preserve quality open space in town, both as environmental and recreational assets. And these efforts will be outlined in the plan, what's been done since, and how to move forward. So through this planning process, stakeholder and community input will play a vital role in expanding on and reshaping these previous priorities to guide future action based off of current needs as well as past vision.
So, like has been mentioned a couple of times, we have just concluded a series of stakeholder interviews. So this was a critical part of planning where, we are including a lot of documentation, data, working in GIS to inform this plan, but speaking with folks that are working with these issues and opportunities every day provides a really critical perspective right at the beginning of the planning process that helps to frame what comes next. So we're thankful for all the stakeholders listed here for taking time to speak with us, including Tony, who joined for each of the interviews. So there were 3. The first one focused on recreation and environmental resources. Second, focusing on public facilities and services. And third, focusing on town brand and character. So if you want to go to the next slide, I'll give an overview of some of the emerging themes that came out of these interviews. For the first one, focused on recreational assets, environmental resources, 3 main themes: expanding and enhancing open space and recreational facilities. So the growing demand for these spaces was discussed. In addition to the accessibility of these spaces, the importance of the ADA accessible trails, and improved field availability. It was noted that increased participation in sports and outdoor recreation has outpaced the capacity of existing facilities. We talked about some of the barriers to expanding these resources, so limited funding and staff capacity. Reliance on volunteers is both a positive and a challenge. It builds investment among the community when folks can volunteer to steward the local environment and help take care of these resources, but without dedicated staff, it does limit ability for maintenance and certainly expanding and enhancing. And an idea was brought up for some potential restructuring of not having a designated Parks and Recreation department, but for the Highway Department to share oversight over these resources to potentially improve maintenance capacity. We talked about conservation and environmental concerns. Nutrient pollution came up a few times in town water bodies, as well as littering, both with trash and dog waste in conservation areas and open spaces. And the challenge with encouraging stewardship, but also enforcing folks not to litter and to help take care of these spaces. So more structured outreach and education on responsible trail use and environmental protection was a strategy that was brought up. And then balancing recreational use with conservation goals. So while some areas might require more management, it can also be beneficial to leave certain areas untouched to preserve their ecological value. Opportunities for revitalization and connectivity. So we talked about sites throughout the town that have potential to either be enhanced or potentially repurposed to serve open space and recreational uses. McFawn Pond and some of the areas surrounding the pond, we talked about opportunities to enhance access. Access was a theme that came up across all three interviews. Improving pedestrian access, potentially also car access for parking, wayfinding, making it easier for folks to find and to access these sites, to improve connectivity throughout the town and usability for residents and visitors. Public facilities and services, again, staffing and maintenance limitations was a barrier that came up. Challenges associated with having adequate staffing to properly maintain recreational facilities. Like I mentioned, access was a critical theme that came up in this interview as well. Camp Kawani was one example where we talked about the entry sequence to the area, the importance of proper lighting, proper sidewalks, ADA accessible infrastructure to make it as easy as possible for folks to access the site. And then just awareness, increased signage and wayfinding throughout the town, as well as informational signage could be strategies to help engage folks more with the great resources that the town has. And we talked specifically about facilities and resource needs. So, certain amenities at sites throughout the town, restrooms, water fountains, seating could enhance the user experience. So upgrading existing facilities, enhancing accessibility, particularly for trails near the senior center and playgrounds, improving inclusivity and usability for all age groups. Camp Kawani came up quite a few times, again, as a major revenue generating asset for the town and being prioritized for accessibility improvements. So again, access a really, really critical theme. You can go to the next slide. And then the last interview was focused on town brand and character. So, Hanson's open space and natural resources are a point of pride for residents and part of what many folks love about the town, the rural atmosphere. And it was noted potential wariness to significant change. We talked about the importance of balancing conservation and preservation with growth, but really protecting and enhancing the quality that these resources bring to the town. So we did discuss branding and economic development, and the opportunity that there is to promote Hanson as a destination for outdoor recreation, potentially draw tourism, visitors from other towns throughout the region, which can also serve as a catalyst to economic activity and economic growth. So we talked about branding tactics, such as developing a dedicated website or brochure focused on open space and recreational resources that can help attract even businesses that are related to outdoor recreation, kind of retail that's related. And we talked about historical resources, enhancing through wayfinding signage, preservation of historical sites, highlighting aspects of the town's history, such as the connection to ocean spray, highlighting the town's heritage while offering new opportunities for growth and exploration. And lastly, access came up as well in this discussion, talking about equitable access to open space and recreational resources throughout the town. It was noted some neighborhoods, particularly the northwest quadrant, lacked equal access to open space and recreational facilities, and then also access across age groups, so ensuring that geographically there's good access for residents throughout the town, but also that the facilities that are provided will cater to underserved populations, as well as folks of all abilities and all age groups, young and old. So a lot of critical issues and opportunities brought up across all three interviews, which helped to frame us and our discussion and our research as we move forward into the needs analysis. You can go to the next slide. So to talk about where we go from here, the stakeholder interviews as well as the community survey are two of the critical elements of engagement at the beginning of the process. So the community survey, like Krista mentioned, will be open about a month. Can stay open longer if responses are still coming in. But the goal is really to get as large of a response as possible, several hundred, if possible, responses. We created flyers, which I believe you all have, that have both the link to the survey and the QR code. So these can be printed and posted in the library and cafes, wherever we can get as many eyes on it as possible. This will be one of the biggest touch points that we have with the community and learning about the priorities and concerns of residents. So we'll be moving into the survey, and then our needs analysis. So, we've already begun our research, but as we begin to get the back from the survey and following our interviews, we'll be integrating all of that together and nailing down the goals and actions and issues that we will focus on in the plan. So that's a good overview of our progress to date, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you.
I have a quick question. I'll try to be brief. One of the things that I noticed in this plan, and I may be wrong, is I don't see it like, I feel like all of the conservation sites in town, right, they need things like parking lots, repairs, things like that. So is this going to have a clear sense of what the town needs? Because in order to fix these things, rather than, like, okay, this week we're going to work on this, to have an overall plan so that, RFPs can be generated and there'd be some knowledge of what these things are going to cost, so people can plan the future of what do we want to focus on now, but also thinking of what's ahead, So that's one of the things I think, having been on conservation myself, it was always a struggle to find the funds to do this stuff. I mean, I know conservation has a pretty limited budget. It's like, what, $7,000 maybe?
Everything we do
comes from CPC, John.
I know, well, I'm aware of that, but, you know, I think it's important too, it's like, rather than have these projects come up, you know, like, what a surprise, you know, if we had like a 5-year plan as part of this, to say, you know, we need this parking lot redone, we need a new parking lot for this, we need better access here. If we had that all laid out in a plan, and I know it's probably impossible to do all of that in this plan, but I think it's important to look into the future for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, of course, the open space and recreation plan will have a certain level of depth and detail, but it will include an inventory of outdoor and recreational resources, kind of taking stock of what amenities it currently has, what is needed, and any, you know, prominent issues with regard to care or maintenance that need to be urgently addressed. In the 5-year action plan, like Krista mentioned, we're focusing on implementation. So for each action, which are really targeted and implementable steps that the town can take to address those issues, will include a high-level timeline as well as priority. So we'll help to kind of map out which are the most urgent issues that it's recommended that the town takes stock of in the short term to the long term in the time span of the plan.
So my hope as, you know, the chair of the CPC, it's up to me to look forward as to, you know, how much funds we have, what we can spend it on. So, you know, 5-year plans for me help a lot. And so in order to utilize those funds to the best advantage of this plan, obviously, you know, CPC's paying for the plan, and we want to be able to utilize it in a way that it will help us, inform us as to what costs may be coming up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the implementation matrix will also include a high level cost estimate. So it'll be mapped out by priority timeline and cost at a high level, which altogether creates a roadmap for kind of what's the low hanging fruit, what is
So you can do kind of like an a la carte menu, like, you know, we could pick this because we know we can afford it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there any possibility of having open fields that you might come across in the town as far as conservation, and produce a field of flowers, wildflowers for the bee population? There's a shortage of that, basically. But I think it would be nice if you could put, you know, walkways through the field that people could walk through with the kids and stuff, and look at that, and then maybe have some hives on the outside perimeter that the kids can get involved in, doing bees and things like that, because we don't have any fields with flowers anymore, you know, it's in somebody's yard, and that's about the extent that you get. But there used to be a lot of flowering years ago in the woods, because I remember when I was a little kid, I used to pick all this kind of stuff from my mother. And then I'd get an apple pie.
Are the beekeepers still up on High Street?
Yeah, stay there.
Nice.
That's a great idea. I know we just took note. Yeah, I think it gets at kind of crossover between conservation and recreation, where you know, pollinators are great for the natural environment and ecologically, but also big an opportunity for education.
It'd be nice if you had the
Kids and
land
families.
and you got the land set aside, you could use it for something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And you mentioned there are beekeepers that are active.
I know a
Yeah.
lot of times conservation wants to put, you know, trees up, you know, replant and stuff like that. But it'd be nice to have these open fields of flowers.
What's the full title for the beekeepers? Is it some
County Beekeepers
Plymouth County
Association.
Their headquarters is right here in town.
Oh, wow.
And can I ask another quick question? On the, you talked about waypoint identification and signage. I don't know, I'm using the right wording, but I think that would, what does that look like? I guess would be my question. Because I feel like CPC is going to end up paying for this. And it'd be nice to, you know, have a sense of what are you going with that and what it would look like.
There are, you know, different systems that towns will implement, but, you know, throughout the town, just directionally highlighting what the points of interest are and where. You know, a lot of trailheads, as Tony drove us down and gave us a tour, you know, you don't know where they are until you're right upon them, and if you
Yep.
aren't aware of them, then you might miss them entirely. So just having more signage throughout the town highlighting what the, where the points of interest are, and, you know, roughly how far, what direction.
My favorite town for that is Easton. I don't know if you've ever been through Easton, but they have signage everywhere you go, like you know where you are and
Yeah.
what it's for, and, you know, it's a nice little sign as you drive by. So I'm just wondering if that's what that looks like, or,
Yeah.
And those are all brand new.
oh, I know.
If there's case examples that you've seen and liked, that it would also be helpful for us to know, because there's, you know, different systems, different designs, there's a lot of creativity that can be.
I can get you photos because I go through Easton a lot, and it was within the last year. All of a sudden, when you transition from one town to the other, you just went, "Whoa, that's a nice sign." And then, as you get into town, they do have a lot more signs that point out, you know, different
And it-
conservation areas or buildings.
I don't know that we even do a great job of putting signs at the conservation areas, never mind to get to them.
They do put good signs at the
No,
cons.
I
You
don't
do?
know that we do a very good job.
Oh,
of that.
I can tell you, like,
Most of the signs are hidden
That's not
in the
bad.
back.
It's not
Tucked away.
horrible.
You know, so, yeah,
No.
you know, like most of the signs you see,
No,
they're all
I-
tucked in the back, because I think there's a feeling some people would rather have it be a secret. You know, whereas on the other hand, when you look at Easton and you drive through there, I get the sense that, wait a second, this town really cares about their open space, and they want you to see it, and they want you to know about it. And
Yeah.
I think we could really do well with that model.
One of the problems that we also have, and prior to the pandemic, there wasn't a single soul. You could go down to the Barber Pond, and you'd be lucky to see one car and two couples walking. Pandemic hit, and now it's
The causeway.
overrun. That is a state property now.
Mhm.
So it's funny how the barge itself is run by Mass Wildlife,
Yeah.
but all the impact getting to the barge or at the barge, it hits us. So encapsulating that traffic coming down to that area is certainly a great opportunity for us, and I think that we miss quite a bit.
And can I just add one more quick thing? I know you also mentioned about economic development on Main Street, and since I started on the conservation, I'm talking, I don't know, almost 20 years ago, that the idea that there'd be a causeway, yeah. So my thought was to have a causeway through, there's a building, the Ocean Spray Building, and I think through attrition of, you know, as that gets redeveloped, that there could be a trail that runs along the water line over there, out to Burridge Pond. And I think we're capable of doing that. I know Tony's done some work on that as well, and I would really love to see that happen, because that speaks to the, you know, the ability to get off the train from Boston and go out to Burridge Pond, which is, you know, people know about that area. It's advertised by the state very well. So anything we can do to get more access to that, especially along that water line, would be awesome, because it would do two things. It would also give us access to barge from that area, but it would also protect that coastline,
I-
that pond.
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
to latch onto that a little bit,
Hmm.
I had a conversation with a member of Old Colony Planning Council, who's been following, is a resident of Hanson and following the trail issue.
Mhm.
And the thought was, and maybe you've already heard of this, is in some cases, the MBTA has allowed for shared use of their right-of-way,
Mhm.
where you, in essence, have the trail along the right-of-way of the train. So, and, which would work
That would
really
be
well.
amazing.
If,
Would work.
so I've been in discussions with him, and he's trying to put forward to them to see if maybe that's something that could happen,
Mhm.
which would be really good, because you could literally come off the train, get on the south side of the tracks if they would allow it, and we're walking along the south side of the tracks, which then get you down to Burridge.
Yep.
Yeah,
That'd be awesome.
so it's,
It's great biking out there, too.
yeah, so there's some thoughts on it at least.
Well, that's good.
One of the things that, go ahead.
So, you know, on the pond front side of that, or lake, whatever you want to call it, there's already a 25-foot buffer there. So we have the ability to maybe negotiate that with the owner of that building. So for me, I think that'd be a great place to start, is going, because I know, that site's gonna get redeveloped in the next 10 years anyway, at least, you know? So having that as part of one of the priorities of that plan, I think would be helpful.
Mhm. Absolutely.
One of the things that I've seen, the open space and the trails specifically, where it's kind of fallen short, is something that actually all of our surrounding towns, and whether or not we would be able to take, much like the Native American path, the Bay Circuit Trail.
Bay Circuit Trip.
Much like the Bay Circuit Trail,
Quicker place.
yeah, Crooked Place. So we have the Bay Circuit Trail does come through our town as well. But something that I think that our town, as well as a few of our surrounding towns, can have a discussion about is certainly something for equestrians.
Mhm.
It is a great recreational opportunity for kids and for everybody to get out and be able to, or people just in general, to be able to get out and
Mhm.
ride these trails. You used to be able to go from here all the way down to Middleborough on a horse and never touch a road unless you're crossing over one.
Mhm.
Many of those trails are all gone, or they've been developed, or, whatever. So I don't know if there's an opportunity to try to reach out to our surrounding towns as well to create those other kinds of, passive recreation for the equestrian community.
Yeah, I think, with like a lot of, issues having to do with open space and recreation, a lot of it's regional.
Sure.
The resources and the networks don't stop right at the borders of the town, so I
Right.
think that's a great idea.
And if I ask one more question, I
Yeah.
promise I'll stop. Is it possible for you to look at what other towns in the area, like Easton or similar demographic towns, what the budgets for their open space and recreation upgrades are? Like how much money do they spend annually on their open space and improving their access and stuff like that? I know Easton's a little different demographically than this town, but I just wonder if there's a way to, make a case to increase the conservation budget so that they can do some of these
That's something that we can look into.
things. Right,
Yeah.
awesome. Maybe a little paragraph at the bottom.
Yeah, right. Drawing comparisons between surrounding towns, yeah, absolutely.
Right, thanks.
Mhm.
Mr. Chair, if I may. And just to let you know, I sent out the flyers to all the departments. I've also sent out sent it over to library, all the departments in town, fire, everyone, and asked them to also fill out the survey. And, go online, sent them your flyer, go online, do the survey. And if anyone needed any hard copies, I had them, and they could just drop them off in our mailbox, and we'd get them to you. And I set a date, I believe, the week of March 10th. So I gave them some time to get things back to us.
Yeah,
So within the month, about 3 weeks. So there was still an extra week before you kind of close it out.
yeah,
So I've sent it out to everyone.
great.
See if we can get some response.
And if, there's a way to connect with the schools, to get it up to the families with,
Yeah. You know what?
as well.
Yeah.
Just to try to reach as many different demographic groups as possible, would be great.
I'll send it over to the school.
And if surveys are, if there's any paper copies that are kind of straggling or coming in, once we close the survey, that's when we'll begin our analysis of it. So it's okay if there's still copies of the survey that you're mailing to us after it's complete.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? As this is a public hearing, is there any other questions or comments or concerns from the public? Great. Everybody came prepped and prepared. Great presentation. Appreciate it. Thank you for coming tonight. Really
Thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
us.
Yeah. We're going to keep this open. We're going to just do it as a continued.
Yeah, it'd be a continuance, and you said April, you're figuring April? So the first meeting in April would be the 14th.
Tentative for 14.
The second would be obviously the 28th, because I believe, it'd be the 28th. So, would you like the 14th or the 28th? What would be better for you?
Maybe the 14th, that's kind of right in the middle of the town's review period for the plan. So that might be a good point to touch base.
See where we're at. Yeah, perfect. Great.
So make the motion to continue the hearing until, is it March?
April
April.
14th.
April 14th.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Yes.
Properly seconded by Mr. Ellis to continue our public hearing till April 14th, 2024, to tentative pending any crazy weather. And for the public that are listening or reviewing tonight's YouTube broadcast or WHCA broadcast, perfectly fine to attend. That is a public hearing. So we're looking for citizens to come in, sit, and they can ask questions or add input. So please put on your calendars to come to the April 14th for the open space and recreation plan input. Any discussion in regards to that motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I just wanted to add, Mr. Chair, that this is also on the planning board's webpage.
Absolutely.
There's a link,
The QR
Yep,
link.
there's a link to that.
QR link is on the planning page off the town hall page. So you go to the town hall's webpage, select the planning department, you'll find the QR code.
They're gonna have donuts and coffee.
Donuts and coffee?
Are you buying it? Are you buying it?
budget?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm getting whacked by 9%.
Are you making an offer down there? You can share?
Well, thank you for your time. Really appreciate this. It's been great. It's been a great information. You guys are great presenters as well. So yeah, look forward to seeing you in April.
Thank you.
I have a motion.
Motion has,
To adjourn.
yeah, that's what we need. Motion on the table to adjourn by Mr. Ellis. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Ellis, probably second by Mr. Kemet for adjournment. Any discussion in regards to that motion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So
Opposed?
does that mean there's an opening? to sign it up?
3-0, we are adjourned at 7:51.